Hi, everyone. Welcome to another amazing topic of conversation. First of all, I really want to thank our sponsors, the Health Channel. So please sign up for their newsletters to get everything new on what's going on in the health industry. And also for the Chef in You Finkelmans. They have all the tools for the Chef in You. And from the Power of the Heels, we're going live again in person from monthly network. So please go to Indigo Events and look for upcoming events and register now. Your donation is going to help us with the Loving Me More program. So thank you, everyone. And Channing, it's a pleasure to finally have you as our guest. It's been
Yes,
a
I'm
while.
so excited to be here. What a way to start the week.
So, for anybody that doesn't know Channing, I don't think there's anyone that has been on the other side of the event industry, from the PR side, covering events, writing about events, teaching about events, and now helping the event business move forward. So, Channing, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. It's funny you put it that way, but like as I have I fell headfirst into the event industry and have stayed here ever since, and I absolutely love it. But yeah.
So, I know that we had a pending conversation
Mm-hmm.
because it has been divided now into two. It's called pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and now we're moving forward to the post-pandemic.
Yes.
So, first, before we go into the deep things, what are the lessons that we've learned?
Well, I think the biggest thing is let's clarify that to say what are the lessons we should have learned. Whether or not everyone has learned them, very different scenario.
Correct.
I am still, despite all the things in the world, I am one of those people who do believe that people are genuinely good and actually out to be nice and help out one another. So I think some of the things, the biggest thing we've learned is like as planners, right? So to clarify those who don't really know me as well, I now work directly with event businesses to help improve their marketing and communications, and to help your PR overall, your event marketing. I don't specifically plan events myself. I know the experts for that. I volunteer in those capacities, and I also know my limitations. But as planners, you need to have a plan A, a plan B. Well,
E, D, and F.
bingo, I was going to say, some take that all the way to Z. The kicker, and this is one of the biggest things I think that people really did learn throughout the whole pandemic experience, from an event perspective, is what it actually looks like to have to enact plan Z, because all of these other things flipped on a dime, to how to better handle your own stress with it. At least I hope so, right? Because even if you had to enact the secondary plan, that can be really stressful because it's not the norm, right? In theory, before the pandemic, you created these plans so that you would hopefully, like, you have them ready, but you really don't want to have to use any of them. And the pandemic forced us to realize, no, we have these other plans because we're going to have to use them, and we need to be able to pivot quickly without anybody losing their cool, and hopefully communicating effectively to our attendees, our registrants, about what is changing and why. And that's kind of where I think we're still
For
learning.
example, in Florida, we always have a plan B between the months of July and November for hurricanes.
Uh-huh.
So literally is okay. And we do look like I had an event last week and I was like on top of the tropics to see what's going on and trying to calculate where and how.
Which is good. I think it all comes down to like, we have gotten better, or hopefully gotten better, at the management of expectations. And that includes managing client expectations. And for those who are outside of Florida who don't have, people who come to your state or your city for outdoor events and then have to deal with like a monsoon, right? Like, you have to manage expectations of the clients, of the rest of your team, But the biggest thing in the pandemic is we really have to manage how you're talking to your attendees. How are you talking to people who you're trying to get to register for your event, or to, once they've registered and shown up, whether it's free or otherwise, to stick around and engage? Because we are so many people got totally zoned out on like the Zoom fatigue or talking to their computers all day, because they did not build businesses like I do, where I get to talk to my computer all day, specifically because I wanted to be able to do this from anywhere. That was such a new
You
thing
did
for
that
people.
from everywhere, and I think it was a great solution. But now people don't want to go back to events on Zoom.
Right. No, that's true. They see it as a way to like do business, but because we're still humans, right? Like, as much as I love this, and you're able to develop a relationship with somebody better through
Yeah.
Zoom or through a video chat of whatever the case may be, compared to texting or just a phone call, there still is no substitute for the energy in a room when
Oh,
you
and the
are saying,
Latins with the hug. We're still
there's also that we are humans. We need to touch other humans. It is literally naturally part of who we are as a species. And that translates to everything we do.
Yeah, the emotional connection, you cannot do it through a platform.
No, you're right. It's not the same. It's the same. And this goes into like kind of the marketing direction of things that I talk a lot about is I can make the prettiest logo. I can make the absolute most beautiful marketing campaign and website for you. But in the end, it is all based on the best research and knowledge I have now, because 4 months from now, the people you're trying to reach are humans. And if buying patterns have changed, then we need to adapt to meet them. What's true right now is not going to be true 5 months from now, because humans evolve. Throughout the pandemic, we have changed the way that we relate to each other. So we have to change the way that we market and speak to one another and interact. And that's where you have to like learn how to meet people along the way.
But wait, I feel, and this is me personally, that I
Sure.
feel that a post-pandemic, I feel we're starting all over again
In what capacity?
in every single capacity. Like, for example, we used to have a relationship with venues, right? When you're a planner, you have your relationship with certain venues, certain vendors, and guess what? People are not there anymore. They change and you don't know anyone.
There you go. They change.
Again,
They change.
correct. They
So
change, they move, they go to another hotel. So, in one sense, I've been blessed to be contacted by all the people that I had a relationship saying, okay, now I'm in X, Y, and Z.
well, because it makes sense. Like for the venue, they should want to keep the planners as
Correct.
close to them as possible, because that's where your repeat business comes from. It's a whole lot easier to work with a planner who can send you 15 events than it is to work with the individual end client and have to find another one and another one and another one after that.
But that's how I feel that we've started
Yeah.
all over again.
And I think you're right. I think in some ways there was a lot of kind of clearing of the deck is probably the best way to put it. Because it really, a lot of people left. A lot of people during the pandemic, we know, got laid off, or quite frankly, were like, I'm tired of this completely volatile as it is industry. They're like, they lived through 2008, the pandemic came around, and now they're like, forget this. I want to work in an industry that's always going to be needed no matter what.
We were known as the gig job.
Mm-hmm.
And after the pandemic, like we all saw that, okay, what happened? Like, for example, I was affected because I didn't have anybody on my payroll. It wasn't viable to have an overhead when there were months that there were no events.
From a business perspective, that makes all the sense in the world.
But from the COVID, my loan was not forgiven because of that.
Right. I mean, everything is going to have, right, like these double-edged swords. And
Yeah.
we have on the good side, it's like, okay, you did what was necessary for your business and you got as lean as possible in order to keep moving forwards. Now, some event businesses I think, did this very successfully, that they did have to lay people off, which is an incredibly hard decision, but a financially smart one when the time came, in order to bring them back later when the business started coming in. Now, not all of those people, of course, because again, you're dealing with humans. Just because the business was on freeze doesn't mean these laid off employees' lives
They needed to pay their bills, so they
needed to
needed to
work.
find other jobs. And a lot of people like the other jobs.
That's where I was going. I'm like, some people found this other job and was like, oh my gosh, it turns out I love this. And others were like, that was sucking my soul, but it put food on the table. Please let me get back to this industry that I love so much and want to be a part of again. And then others were like, I don't want to work for anyone else anymore. I'm actually just going to start my own business. So like, I think it's been an ongoing conversation in the event industry. It is a very easy barrier to entry. It is not a very easy one to sustain for many years. And there's, I think, some of the ones who come in thinking they can, enter guns blazing. Let me put my name on the wall and I'm going to undercut everybody in pricing. I'm going to get all this business, are going to get burned out. And they're going to realize that like this industry is based on relationships. And if you screw people over, quite frankly, it's going to come back to you because those vendor and venue relationships are pivotal to success.
Correct. But somebody asked me this question the other day, and I wanted to share it with you to see if you have, I don't think the perfect answer, but at least
insight, maybe.
A lot of the event industry companies have really moved ahead, done well after the pandemic, and we're going to talk about the year of the yes.
Uh-huh.
We say yes to everything because we wanted big time to come back.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted everything to come back. But before we even got to say yes, one of the industries that has been hit and has slowly recovered, not recovered 100%, is the planners.
Mm-hmm.
Because people feel they don't need a planner and they can do it by themselves.
So, yeah, okay.
That is number one. And the other thing is that they go up to your vendors and ask them directly for their information.
Uh-huh.
And so why do they need the planners?
So I have thoughts, right? I do have thoughts on this. I'm really glad that you asked because I definitely see this happening across the board, right? This is not something that is just isolated to you or to Miami. It happens across the board, right? And across the country. And I'm working with clients in major markets and mid-city markets. And then I live in a smaller town. I see it here too. People are like, oh, I can handle that. So part of what's happening there with the planners is that the burden of proving your value is on you to demonstrate to these people why it is that they need a planner. And the biggest thing that the pandemic can teach us from that is we're going to make this a whole lot less stressful for you. You've been stressed enough. You've had enough balls to juggle and do 10 things at once. You've lived that life. You don't have to anymore because this is literally what we live and breathe, right? Yes, Jenny can go plan her own event in addition to the 20 other hats she tries to wear in a day, or she can hire someone who only wears the event planner hat and she can focus on the 20 other ones instead, and everybody kind of wins out better. So there is a burden of proof that is on the planner to prove, which is a consistent one in their own marketing as to why you were valuable, but also how you tie in bigger to, on the social side, the plan, like that person's life, how you're going to make their lives easier, how you're going to offer a transformation. And then on the corporate side, how your events directly connect to the bottom line.
Yes, but for example, Jenny.
Yes.
Jenny's not going to be able to enjoy her party. Well, a million other things are going on the other side.
Exactly. You're going to be making, and that's where you talk to her about all the ways that your life is going to be easier if you hire a planner. You get to enjoy this. You get to focus on the other elements of your life, right? You don't have to worry about contract negotiations that are difficult. We handle all of the budgeting. You just have to make the big level decisions when we present them to you. Do you want this or do you want this? Or here's your fully designed concept. Isn't this exactly the goals you're trying to accomplish? Jenny, sign a check, sign on the dotted line for the contract, and you get to enjoy and be a hostess or host at your event as opposed to having to deal with that. So those are all the reasons that planners can use to stress how valuable you are. And quite frankly, it's the same ones that I've been trying to teach planners since before the pandemic too. The difference is that it was business flowed to them still a lot easier. And then things went virtual. And a lot of people are like, oh, but do we even need to bring this role back? Because we sustained ourselves just fine.
Yeah, but during the pandemic, it was even worse.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, because they didn't, companies in particular were like, oh, well, we don't need a planner for that. We'll just take care of it because it's smaller. It's in-house. It's virtual.
Or it's virtual, and it was even worse.
Which, well, and a lot of this, again, some people learned from their mistakes and realized that a proper virtual event most definitely needs a planner and a producer and AV. Like, you still need all of these things. But it was up to the planners. And I have multiple clients that were this way. You know, you have to educate your clients about what, like, the cost of a virtual event is not any less than the cost of an in-person.
On the contrary, it can be more.
Exactly. But people that are not event planners think, oh, well, I'm doing this online, so I don't have a venue. I don't have F&B that I have to worry about. I don't have to worry about security. I don't have to worry about rental furniture. Oh my gosh, I'm saving all these line items. As opposed to what planners have taught them is, oh no, you're just taking all of those and moving them into AV and set design and the gift boxes you send to people before a virtual event, or designing in the metaverse now that that's a thing, and that costs insane amounts of money if done for large events. Like, it's just a matter of moving it all around. But again, it's up to the experts in any field to teach those who are their clients how that works.
Yes, and for example, in a face-to-face event, if you're running like 5-10 minutes late because the speaker is amazing and you don't want to cut them off, you can handle it. But on a virtual event, you cannot go and, okay, stop.
Right. And it gets, especially, I mean, unless you're in this, it's like a proper set design, it does. It brings a whole different level of challenges, or you become the awkward host who like steps over their speaker on the event, and all of their attendees notice that, which has a whole long list of like ramifications that can come from it.
So it's a lot more complicated than just doing a personal event. That I totally found out.
There are so many more elements to it and so many more steps, but it's one of those things that I think in the beginning in particular, clients didn't know what they didn't know. They literally were just like, oh, this will be fine. And some consulted with planners and said, oh, no, we're going to do it on our own. And then they came back crawling to their former event planner after that event and said, actually, we're going to need a lot of help because that did not go to plan. So some learned, others just did bad events that were not engaged with. And if it was corporate, their marketing and their sales hurt as a result, or associations had their membership drop. Like, there were business ramifications from these things. The question is, are the clients going to learn from their mistakes just as much as our planner is going to learn that you always have to prove your value? You're going to have to prove it.
Really hard educating the client when they don't know the industry.
But that service industry, right? Think about like when the plumber comes to your house. Well, if your toilets and sinks are overflowing and it's gross, well, it's kind of obvious as to why you need the plumber. But if you do,
but they would pay a plumber easier than paying a planner because they think that they can just put
because it's literally like crap or water on the ground in that scenario. And planners are talking about like the figurative things going to crap kind of scenario.
Unless you see it, they don't believe it.
Exactly. And some of us, I mean, let's be real. It's like the wet paint sign. How many people see a wet paint sign and nope, got it. Yep, sure enough, I touched it. It's wet paint. Because some people need to experience it in order to believe the advice that is put before them. It's not everybody. I mean, there's a lot of virtual events that did well, and there are some agencies and independent planners that came out very far ahead during the pandemic because they kept working. Others, sometimes you just need to survive. And if you survived it and you still have a business, that's huge, because a lot of people just left and were like, don't want to do this, and moved on. And that's fair for them. But I think now just having a business that is still around and still has interest in the event industry that was hit so hard, what in any direction, doesn't matter if you are a vendor, you are a venue, you are a service provider, everybody got hit. And if you did, and you managed to make it through and still have a business that's attracting any clients, that is major. And that is not something that I think should be overlooked, even if it's not where your business was before.
No, you're totally right. So why do you say that we're in the year of the yes?
Yeah. Oh, because this is, we have done the famine, right? Where like no one was doing events, and then it gradually started coming back and there's little scraps. And I think we tend as humans, again, right? This is all a study in just human behavior, sociology and psychology. We have gone so far to the opposite side from no events directly into, well, yes, I'm going to say yes to everything that comes in. Oh, you need this proposal.
Let's make it up.
Yeah. Oh, you want to do this event in, 3 weeks that normally takes 6 months to plan? Well, okay. Yeah, let's do it. Let's get it, because we crave getting the sale. It's like, there's so much money that was lost, and it varies from agency versus vendor versus the size of the business, right? And the market you're in. But so much money was lost that now there's overcompensation to, yes, I just want to take in every client. It's kind of like what happens when you first start your business and you're like, I need any business I can get.
I can, whatever you can get. But on the contrary, in my experience, I always said yes to everything.
And what happened?
This month, I've said no to 3 events. I think it's the first lesson. I think all my life, I always said yes to everything.
But how does it feel? Well, first of all, why did you say no to those events?
I felt really bad.
For them?
I felt really bad because somebody, I was referred to a lady and she said, I know they referred me to you, that you can pull this off. I need to get married because of health issues in 3 weeks. And
so what made you say no? Because I think I know why I would have told you to say no, but why did you?
I had a personal event. I had my grandson's bar mitzvah to plan.
So there you go. You're telling me you said no to a piece of business because you realized it was not realistic for you to be able to personally service 2 events at the exact same weekend that it was happening.
No, not even at the same weekend. It was one weekend after the other. So, but it didn't make sense. And I remember that one time I used to do, like, on 1 month, I had 17 events.
Uh-huh.
But the first and last,
it takes a toll.
3 events in 1 day. And it was the first and the last time I did. Everything went great, except for one little oops. And that one little oops was a huge oops, and it was on me.
Yeah.
And it was on me. And I said never again. And this was over, 15 years ago.
Well, I mean, there you go. But see, everybody, we all, in business, when it comes on to taking too many clients or too many events, we all learn the hard way. Because even if every one of your events continues to go off without a hitch, you then look back and you're like, man, I should have charged them more because I did that amazing and they didn't pay enough for it now.
But you know what? But in a sense, yes, I felt bad to the girl that really called me because it was for health reasons. So I ended up calling her and saying, look, if you don't find anyone, I'll do some consulting so that you can get through the month. I really felt, so I say no in a sense.
But which is good, but that's still, what you did was tailor your reply based on what your actual bandwidth is. And that's another lesson that we have learned from this that hopefully others have, is like, I feel like the year of yes is that we slid back to everybody just started their business. So they're like, yes, I need all the money I can get. Let me take everything. And then what's happening now? I read the news stories that come across, like I get every type of event newsletter. I read all kinds of stuff. planners reaching burnout. It's October.
Yeah.
Holiday parties still have to happen.
Oh,
Those in the
because
social sphere.
everybody wants everything on the same weekend. So yes,
Exactly.
I got something else.
Everybody's waiting until last minute, which means planners, like everybody, vendors too, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I have to say this, like, let me scrunch all this down. But burnout is happening. They're running out of inventory. And the more you try to take on, the bigger chance that an oops is going to happen, right? Which you learned 15 years ago. But it's one of those, like, it makes sense. It's like, well, I was starving. Now I have all this food and, you know, money being thrown at me. I want to take all that I can, because you forget what the long-term effects are.
Yes, but there's certain things that you need to realize that you cannot do. Like for example, the other no was a huge gala in 2 weeks. But
That's
this
so
was like
fun.
3 weeks ago, and it was a huge gala, and they needed. And at the beginning, I said yes, because the money was there. And then I realized that it was really not worth it. I was like going to kill myself.
But I think that's the lesson, right? Is that you've looked at
Correct.
this and said, similar to what we were talking about before about how planners prove their value to a client. In this case, your client, the value your client was bringing in to your life was not enough to counterbalance the detriment it was going to have on your quality of life, your sanity, and quite frankly, that also translates to the quality of work you put out.
Correct, because you would have been exhausted
And then it's like, that's when things get missed, because again, we're all humans. And that's what I hope kind of the pandemic has taught us from a landscape moving forward, is like, people are humans. Like, I have 2 dogs snoring on the floor in my office right now. They often tend to jump up on, maybe the phone rings. Like, the wall, kind of the veil was released between work and life, and it's all blended. We're not just robots. And it doesn't matter. We can still get business done and we can still work really well, but we have to remember that if we want, like, you can't expect perfection, right? We can't expect perfection, and we do have to protect our own quality of life and mental health and your bottom line. And there very much is a way to do all of those things. There is.
So what our last question,
Okay.
how do you see the evolution of the event industry moving forward? We've passed the pandemic, we've learned a lesson,
Yeah.
we have virtual. Hopefully the virus are all gone and we can whatever. But how do you see the evolution of the event moving forward?
Oh, I think it is entirely, I mean, it's a loaded question. One, I do think the answer to that is like, it depends on who you talk to and what you read, just like anything else. But I personally look at it and I see the most, one, that continuing education will be paramount to any event professional's continued success and longevity. It is going to be for any of them, whether you are internal or you are third party. You have to continually be educating yourself on new options and ways to service your clients, and you have to continue to innovate. Because if we look at the real path here, from live in-person events started, then we went to virtual, well, then we went to Zoom, and then from Zoom, we went to full-on virtual platforms. Then we went to hybrid to have a little bit of both worlds. Then some went fully back in person. And then others were like, nope, now we're going to the metaverse. So there's been a continual evolution that has happened over the past few years. And planners, quite frankly, have the most options ever that you have had to try and reach your audience. The metaverse gives us an opportunity to interact with products and with people all around the world in a way that an in-person event would not be able to do. An in-person live event gives us all the chances to have that physical, energetic connection with other humans, emotional connections that you cannot do in a virtual world. But as a result of this, you don't have to pick just one or the other. You've got both. So now event professionals can be even more understanding. If you look forward, it's like, we have so many more things to choose from. It doesn't have to always be a gala or a cocktail party. It's like, well, let's go back to events 101. What is the goal of this? And then based on that,
call it the objective.
There you go. The
What do you
objective.
really want to take out of it?
Right. What is the purpose? What are you trying to like? What is the message you're trying to get across? And then based on that, choose a number of different event platforms. It's not even, oh, well, now that's going to help us choose our theme, or that's going to help us choose our speakers. Now it's like, that helps you choose the platform that it's going to be on. And maybe you become a company or an organization that goes back and forth to different ones, and you do a mix of all of them.
Now
And
you can have the flexibility of having a panel and literally bringing an expert from Australia
yeah,
through Zoom that's sitting right next to you. And that's pretty cool.
yeah,
So,
which is fantastic. And it could also be that you've spent the past 2 years learning, and it turns out your ideal clients actually, they only are in-person people. Okay, great. You can still bring technology in from the outside that we have now into the live in-person experience to make it better. So I think the key overall with this is like, we're going to continue to evolve, right? And the only way that event planners, that producers, that venues get better and continue to grow and evolve is if they're educating themselves on what other industries are doing, as well as what their peers are. And I hate to quote it because it's so cliche, but it's true. Rising tides lift all boats. It's not one planner against another. It's not.
no. On the contrary,
We
it's
have to work together to elevate the
yeah.
industry for everyone else who is not in it and may not see the value of why do we need events or why do we need these professionals, because they do. But it's everybody speaking the same thing and beating the same drum of why events are needed that will continue to keep the industry around
The
and
events
exciting.
are not going away. We know
Well,
that.
let's hope they're just going to continue to evolve, right? It's just a matter of how much people see the value in them. And if they don't see enough value, they're not going to put down enough money to make the reality happen. And then all of our experiences kind of suffer.
And with that, I'm
That's my
gonna have to say that our time is up.
full fair. I hope this has been highly entertaining, at least for me. Hopefully insightful and a few little nuggets
We
across the
all
way.
learned a little bit as always. So Channing, thank you so much to everyone until next Wednesday. And above all, stay safe. Have a great week, everyone.